For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the gentleman from Alabama for the customary 30 minutes. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, last night, the majority on the House Rules Committee once again decided to exclude from debate 230 amendments to H.R. 2810, the National Defense Authorization Act. That means that half of the amendments submitted were rejected. I can never understand why these amendments are denied the chance to be debated by the full House. When I first came to Capitol Hill as an aide to our former friend and colleague, Congressman Joe Moakley, the Defense Authorization Bill would often take up to a week for debate. But even back then, it was one of the largest and most complex bills debated, and certainly one of the most important from a national security point of view. The NDAA rule was also structured back then, but more in terms of the amount of time permitted for debate. And many amendments received 1 hour, half an hour, 20 minutes, even 2 hours of debate. Why? Because they were about the important decisions and priorities facing our national defense policy at the time. But that's not the case today. Amendments are lucky to get 10 minutes of debate equally divided, if they're lucky enough to be debated at all. And the defense bill takes up a total of maybe 2 days worth of debate, if that. No wonder members are frustrated by this process. This year, like every year for the past several years, important issues, especially on war and peace, were left on the chopping block by the Republicans. They decided that the House should not debate two bipartisan amendments that would make sure that nothing in the NDAA could be construed as authorization to use force against the governments of North Korea or Syria. The Republican majority decided it's okay to debate a bigoted amendment that prohibits medical treatment for transgender service members who are in transition, but they will not let the House debate an amendment that just calls for a study, Mr. Speaker, on blood donations from gay men. Mr. Speaker, did you know that there's a provision in the NDAA that sets up an entire new military service branch, the Space Corps? The Pentagon doesn't want it. The Air Force doesn't want it. They say it's premature. But an amendment by Mr. Turner, a Republican, to require the Pentagon to report on the need to establish a Space Corps is not included in this rule. I guess the Republican leadership doesn't want the House to have a say in a debate on such a major change. Mr. Amash led a bipartisan amendment to block the sale of cluster munitions to Saudi Arabia. Last year, this amendment failed by just a handful of votes. I guess that's why the Republicans on the Rules Committee aren't about to let it come up for a debate and a vote this year. And when it comes to sending our uniformed women and men into war, into danger, where their very lives are at risk, the Rules Committee decided that such amendments were not worth the House's time to debate. Last night, Republicans on the Rules Committee denied the opportunity for debate on a bipartisan amendment offered by myself and Representative Walter Jones, Barbara Lee, Thomas Massey, John Garamendi, Dan Kildee, and Peter Welsh. The amendment is very straightforward. If the President decides to increase the level of U.S. troops deployed in Afghanistan in FY 2018, then he would report to Congress on the purpose and mission of those troops, how many were required, and how long they would be there. And then Congress would vote to approve or disapprove that escalation. This would give the American people the voice they deserve when it comes to sending our men and women in uniform into battle. Mr. Speaker, the President and General Mattis just decided to send an additional 4,000 troops to Afghanistan to fight the Taliban, on top of the 8,400 U.S. troops already there. That will bring the total number of American troops there to more than 12,000. Now, if they should decide that they want even more troops in Afghanistan in FY 2018, Congress should know why and vote on it. We can't keep giving the administration a blank check and allow America once again to go down the slippery slope of incremental escalation over the next year or two. Congress needs to step up to the plate and either approve or disapprove any renewed escalation in Afghanistan. Isn't that amendment worth debating? We are in year 16 of the war in Afghanistan. It is the longest war in American history. Let me repeat that. Mr. Speaker. Afghanistan is the longest war in U.S. history. The costs are already in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and the human cost to our troops, our veterans, and their families have been enormous. And yet, Congress has not taken a single vote, has not taken a single stand on this war for 16 years. Most of the members of this House weren't even here when that one and only vote was taken. So in the absence of debating an updated AUMF for Afghanistan, the very least we can do is debate whether we will once again escalate our military footprint in Afghanistan. But the Republican leadership of this House doesn't agree. Each year, the Republican leadership does everything it can to stop any debate on these wars. And this year is no different. They'll allow some amendments on reports and a sense of Congress here and there, but any amendment of substance that requires Congress to act is denied. Mr. Speaker, I want to advise my colleagues of one thing, and that is we are not an advisory commission. We are a legislative body. We need to start doing our job. Mr. Speaker, I have no problem with the report, but it won't be the first time we've seen a report, whether on Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria. Even the underlying bill calls for a strategy report on Afghanistan and other conflicts. But Congress avoiding taking any responsibility for continuing to send our servicemen and women into harm's way is absolutely shameful. Mr. Speaker, it is cowardice. Every day, military families say goodbye to their loved ones as they go into battle, placing themselves in harm's way to keep our country safe. And Congress does nothing. All we do is kick the can down the road and call for another report, and then another report. Mr. Speaker, if we don't even act when the President actually does send us an AUMF, the way President Obama did on Iraq and Syria in the war against ISIS, we did nothing. We said we didn't like it, but we did nothing. The Republican leadership complained that they didn't like it, but then they never even tried to act on it or to write their own AUMF. They'd rather just stand on the sidelines, complain and criticize, but do nothing, absolutely nothing, except stop other members from taking any action that might require the House to debate these wars. Shame on all of us for allowing this to continue over and over and over and over again. Now, I'm guessing that whenever the House takes up the defense appropriations bill, the Republican leaders will find a way to make sure that the bipartisan supported provision in that bill to sunset the 2001 AUMF on Afghanistan and vote on a new one within 8 months will somehow disappear without a single member of the House at large having a chance to vote on it. Maybe we'll get another report. And so it goes on and on. Mr. Speaker, there is nearly $700 billion authorized in this bill for wars, for weapons systems, for military equipment, and for personnel, all because Congress refuses to make hard choices. We can never seem to find the money to take care of our own neighborhoods and schools. We can't find the money to provide our citizens with better, more affordable health care or make sure that all our families can put food on the table. We don't invest nearly enough in our roads and our bridges, railways, and transit systems. There's never enough money to invest in a 21st century manufacturing base, provide training to support the jobs of the future, or raise the federal minimum wage to a livable wage. We're told we don't have the money to take care of our parks or to make our air and water, to make sure that our air and water are drinkable and breathable. We can't even seem to find the money to take care of our senior citizens and our children. But when it comes to spending for war on, or when it comes to spending on war or building more nuclear weapons, then magically we find trillions of dollars to authorize and spend. You know, we need to pay more attention, Mr. Speaker, to the choices we make each year on how much spending our nation really requires for its national defense. I believe, at a minimum, Mr. Speaker, that Congress needs to debate and vote on whether to keep sending more and more of our military men and women to fight in endless wars. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, to my colleagues, what the Rules Committee did last night by shutting out debate was shameful. And having said that, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion that the House adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for a roll call.
Recorded vote is requested. Yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.